Welcome to the podcast. Nathan Newberry here, your host. Super pumped for you guys to hear Brandon Smith's story and his background and his expertise. He's a developer. He also does and builds a lot of homes around the Vancouver, Canada area. But he's also building a coaching company. He's a podcaster. He's a really vetted entrepreneur that I'm super pumped to have you guys listen to his story and his unique take on how to build a business and leadership. And so we'll talk about some of the tactics toward the end. So stay tuned toward that. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And then down below, I have a free gift for everybody that's listening in. So many people want to build an online business, but they just don't know how to do it. They want to know how to leverage, how to build a team, how to leverage AI, how to do ads. In this workshop down below, it really kind of covers a lot of that. It's my gift to everyone that's listening in. Man, oh man, Brandon, I'm thankful for you being on. One of the questions I asked everybody out the gate here is, what is high performance? What does that look like? What does that mean to you? How do you apply that to your life?
Nathan, thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here. High performance. I think high performance it compounds, right? What might start out as performance then needs to be retrospected and acted on in a meaningful way. And what I mean by that is if you're finding something that's performing really, really well or is not working really, really well, you need to look back at that and understand very clearly and be able to dive introspectively into who you are as a person and be very honest with yourself as to what is working and what isn't, and make those changes. And those changes over time become faster and faster and more aligned with your gut than your brain. And I think that that's a very distinct difference, because I think we get so caught up in so many things that keep us distracted. There's so much out there. There's so much overwhelm. There's so much going on online, Instagram. If you're scrolling, you're getting ads thrown at you all the time. Your mind gets very, very busy, and people are starting more and more to trust less and less. And so and I think that a lot of people have lost that discipline of following their instinct. Their instincts get muddied by so many different thoughts that their brain is firing at them, either telling them to do the right thing, the wrong thing, whatever that looks like. But we have lost that sense of intuition that is so powerful. And we need to really start to develop that. And the way that you start developing intuition is becoming confident in the decisions that you're going to be making. And the only way to do that is to really be honest with yourself and actually make some decisions along the way, analyze and reiterate.
So true, man. And you're a high performer, you're a high achiever. You've applied a lot of things to your life, but like, how do you help serve people right now, just so the audience could get some more context? And then I want to go dive into your past story too, of just how you became the success now too. But talk about some of the things you do right now and how you serve people.
So I've right out of high school, I've been in the construction area for over 20 years. I've been running our own company here. We just passed our 15-year anniversary in business, which we celebrated, and that was awesome. It didn't start out that way, so a lot of stuff along the way, but we build beautiful homes, we develop properties, and most recently I've really wanted to take everything that I have learned and be able to share that with others. Launched Trade Up Coaching Solutions, and we are rocking and rolling. It's to help home builders, renovation contractors, developers build a business that they do not grow to hate.
Man. So talk to us about the very beginning of this. Like, you've built your business and stayed true to the company that you have. Most of the time, entrepreneurs, they shift a lot. They start things for a few years, but you've lasted for over a decade with the business that you've been able to develop. And you've really probably honed in on some really key skills on like leadership, how to hire, how to sort through, good talent, how to kind of build the business and make it profitable. Talk about some of the origin stories of some of the struggles that you've had to deal with, and maybe the line in the sand moments that you had to really get real with yourself to really kind of build things out to be really successful.
You mentioned something about focus there, and that was something that I really struggled with. And I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs who do. When I was 15 and I was early in high school, ADD was a big buzzword, right? It wasn't you had a problem and all of a sudden it was like, oh, maybe it's this ADD thing. And luckily
Right.
at that time there was a lot of pills out there that we were that were on the market and readily available. And then so the solution was, hey, take these pills and that's going to help solve your ADD. So at the age of I was about 14 and my parents split up. I wasn't doing well in high school. I always wanted to work, but I was told that I had ADD. I was really struggling with school. My counselor basically told me that I didn't have any future after high school if I couldn't sort this out. And they offered me, additional time in high school to study more and, blocked off time in class so that I felt like an outcast because they were making all of these custom little like, hey, he has a problem, so let's just give him some time and some space. And because I was struggling to learn, my mom really took that to heart and she put me in an after school learning center. So after school, I went to another school to learn more. And this was not something that I did well at. Like I would fall asleep in class. And I really, really struggled. When I was 14, I went around because I like I mentioned, I really wanted to work. So I had given out applications everywhere that I could, and McDonald's hired me on. And I couldn't start until I turned 15. So I had to wait 3 weeks until my 15th birthday. The day after my 15th birthday, I started my first shift at McDonald's.
Hmm.
I made it there. I remember I was hired on at the same time, myself and another guy named Brandon. So we are both hired on at the same time. And I was let go a little over 3 weeks after my shift at McDonald's, my tenure at McDonald's, because I still to this day don't really know, but I was told I wasn't McDonald's team material. So I remember when I was first hired, my mom, who was really tired or really sort of struggling with the idea that her kid had a learning disability, was so excited that I had a job. And I remember walking home from McDonald's after I'd been fired. And I had to go home and tell my mom after she had told all of her friends that I had gone out and gotten this job. And she was so proud of me that I had just been fired from McDonald's. And still, like I remember her face and what that was like. Like she loved me very, very much, but there was that distinct sort of glossiness in her eye that really, really hurt my heart a bit because I was letting
Mm.
my mom down. And I realized, all right, well, I need to focus. What am I going to do? So after a career at Little Caesars Pizza, where they luckily took me in their open arms, I found myself in construction in high school at the age of 17. So I started full time in construction after I graduated high school. From there, it was just, I need to focus. I've been given this opportunity. I need to show up. So it was just do everything that I could. And that meant just keep your head down, do the work, ask the questions. And after about 4 months of pushing a broom, I graduated to pushing a squeegee so that I could keep the concrete dry so that guys could come around and lay out what their walls and whatever they were doing. And about 5 months after that, I was asked if I wanted to start an apprenticeship. And I didn't even know what an apprenticeship was, but it was an opportunity. And I said, yes, please. And I worked with that company. I got my certification, my Red Seal certification in carpentry. And I continued to work with that company and moved up the ranks very, very quickly. Half of it was just showing up, staying focused on the task that was at hand. And what I was alluding to earlier was taking the feedback that I was getting from my employers and making sure that I was doing better and better each day. I was rapidly growing throughout the organization, and it became clear after I'd gained some confidence back. I saw what that path looked like if I'd continued down that road. In 2010, I had started also taking on a lot of side projects. So I'd go and work my day job, and weekends, evenings, I had a number of clients that I was working for. And I had enough at that point, I had enough clients and enough interest in what I was able to offer that I didn't need my full-time job anymore. And I didn't want the future that that company was going to provide because it had a ceiling on it. And I didn't want to be
Mm.
capped with any sort of ceiling. So in 2010, I jumped into entrepreneurship and started New Vision Projects. Right now, yeah, we build homes. I have a business partner that's up in the Okanagan, and we are on our third land development project up there. And we've been doing that for about 6 years as well. Work with a number of different high school students. And I'll get into that in a minute because, man, like we give high school kids these days and younger generation a really hard time. But I have seen these high school students that I've been working with over the last 7 years. They are incredible. And I really think that the future is in good hands because these
Mm.
kids are not afraid to ask questions. They are not shut down. They're very focused. They are dialed. And I've seen some incredible things with the programs that I've been working on with the high schools and other young entrepreneurs.
That's so cool, man. I love it. Talk about like during this entrepreneurship venture, was there some up and downs while you were building this? And were you married at that time while you were going through the beginning stages of this? Because I know that's not easy to have a marriage while you're trying to figure things out, or was that later?
I was in a relationship which for about 9.5 years. I started the company when I was in that relationship. So I was with her during the transition from working with the company into entrepreneurship. And that was tough. And that relationship ultimately ended. And like anything, I realized what I could have done differently and what I don't want to do in the future. I'm now very happily married with a different woman, and I do not want to make those same mistakes that I made. But I remember the first year in business. So I want to paint this picture for you too, because I had at that point I had bought my first house at the age of 22. So the company that I was working with had contributed money to my RSPs when I was young. I had read Rich Dad Poor Dad, started putting
Yeah.
10% away of everything that I earned, every paycheck, no matter what, into a savings account, into RSPs. And at some point, I had enough of a down payment at the age of 22 where I could buy my first home. So I bought a cheap home, whatever I could afford. And then just before I left the company that I was working with, I bought a rental property. And that rental property I bought basically with zero down. I'd worked out a deal with the developer and got that second property because I knew that once I started my entrepreneurial journey at a young age, banks probably weren't going to look at me. So when I decided to jump into starting my own company, I had two mortgages and I had about 3 months worth of savings that I knew that if everything went totally wrong, that I had 3 months to really start getting my act together. So I had a bit of a cushion there. 6 months into starting my first business, I went to Quiznos for lunch with my business partner. Sandwich goes through, I go to pay for it, and the sandwich is like $9. And I don't have that money in my account. I go to pay and I get declined. And I look at my business partner. I say, this is absolutely never going to happen again. Remember this. And can I borrow $9 because I need to pay for this and it's already through the oven and I'm starving. So that was one of the first lessons that I learned in the first 6 months of starting my business because we weren't doing what we needed to do. We didn't know anything about running a business. We were running on hopes and we had a skill that we had that was going to get us so far, but we didn't know anything about finance or taking deposits or cash flow or anything that would have helped out at that point. And we were young, naive, and just really, really excited. But that relationship that I was in, that relationship ended because of some of the complexities that come along with running a business.
Yeah.
The time, the effort, the energy that goes into running a business. This is something that is new. And that relationship absolutely took a back seat to what I was trying to accomplish. And there was no negotiation with my partner at that time, with my girlfriend at that time. There was no conversation about, hey, this is how it's going to go. She just ended up being on there for the ride. And at some point she just said, you know what, I didn't really sign up for this. And fair enough. And so those mistakes, now being happily married, I've very much learned from. And it doesn't matter, man. You come home from a day of work, whether it's, you come home, you've had a bad day, you need to show up to your family the way that you show up with 100% energy, the way that you show up
Mhm.
to your leadership team, the way that you show up to podcasts, the way that you show up to your work. Because if not, your family is at home getting your leftovers and they are going to absolutely start to resent what it is that you're doing. I remember the comments that would come like, oh, well, why don't you just get a job? Like, why don't you just get a job? Maybe you should just go work for somebody and at least, that way you'll have a steady paycheck. And that just drove me absolutely insane. And so I know that if I want the support and any entrepreneur out there, if they want the support, if they're driven to do something, to build something, their number one cheerleader needs to be their partner that they are spending their life with. And if they are not a fan of what it is that you're doing, that is going to be an absolute barrier for you to be able to move forward.
Mhm.
You need to, I've had days when I get home and I sit in my truck and I look in my mirror and my rearview mirror, and that is a reframe. And I have to have a little conversation with myself. I turn that off and I walk in and I see my little girl and I see my wife and I bring that love, man. I bring everything that I can, whatever last bit of energy that I have, I make sure that I deploy it all right up until the time that I go to bed.
Talk about the importance of leading yourself before even leading others, because you've worked with a lot of people, hired a lot of people over the years, and you teach people how to lead well, not only yourself, but the business and the profit. Talk about the essentials there.
I know that it starts at the top. It starts with leadership. And if we are confined, and I say this to my staff, if this business is relying on everything that I know within these four walls, we're hooped. Like we are not going to be able to grow. I know that in order for us to grow, I need to be continually growing as a person. I need to be upping my skill set every single day, whether it's soft skills, whether it's technical skills, whether it's critical conversations that need to have. It absolutely starts at the top. And that's why I know that taking care of myself, controlling what it is that I can control, whether it's the sleep that I have. I mean, I have a new baby coming up, so like sleep will be kind of thrown out the window a little bit, but the food that I put in my body, the information that I absorb, the time and energy that I deploy to the tasks that I'm working on that are going to be moving things forward, all of that all of that has to be really well calculated. And time is very finite. Everybody is aware, or I think most people are aware of really how little time we have on this planet. We have time, but we don't. You know what I mean? You listen to Gary Vee and he says, if you're 40, you have time. If you're 60, you have time. If you're 70, you have time. If you're 80, you have time. If you're 90, give me a call and we'll chat, right? But the reality is, if you want to do something very, very well, you do have to stay focused for a very long period of time, longer than you really anticipate. I think that longer than anybody anticipates, they're going to have to spend on something. We're chronic, we're chronic underestimators of how much being really good at something actually takes. And so that discipline it starts at the top. And I know that if I have any sort of bad habit or I'm going to slip, I need to have a framework in place that's going to keep me on track and that's going to keep me accountable because I don't have anybody else to really keep me accountable other than myself.
And you've gone through a transformation, like physically too. Like you do jujitsu. There's a lot of discipline with that martial arts in your fitness and focus to lead yourself well and then bring up and show up to your family and then your team and then deploy that energy and skill and capital into those endeavors to grow and skill.
Yeah, if I can team sports and combat sports, like if there's anything that I can encourage anybody to get involved in, team sports is going to really teach you something about where you fit in, how you contribute, why people rely on you in combat sports, man. That it is you versus yourself more than anything. Because jiu-jitsu I absolutely love because it teaches you how to stay calm under pressure, how to move well, how to think 3 steps ahead. And it is wildly, wildly humbling. And that's really what, why I encourage anybody that I talk to get into jujitsu, because you learn so much about yourself. You can walk through that door for that first time and have a big head on your shoulders. And after you've been grappling with somebody that's half your size, half your weight, and they just absolutely tie you up, it is humbling. And it shows you how much you absolutely don't know and you need to learn. And you keep coming back and you learn so much so fast.
For our time sake here, I want to ask you, like, do you leverage a lot of AI right now in your business? Because I mean, building things is a little bit different, with leveraging AI and building a team. How much of that do you utilize, and what are you working on now?
Absolutely, as much as we can. I'm learning more and more about it every single day. Started off the first thing when ChatGPT first came out, I was amazed by it, just like everybody else was, but understood the power of what AI looked like. So I'll give you a quick fun story here, because I wasn't too sure, and I come from our company is very, work with hammers, work with tools, work with this. Like we work hard, we grind hard, we get stuff done. And so the adoption of AI into our organization was pretty tough. So I had given a presentation to our entire staff on AI, on ChatGPT specifically, when it had come out, and how to prompt ChatGPT properly. And I gave them this beautiful presentation, walked them through step by step how to do it, why it's important to integrate it. At the end of it, they were all really on board. And afterwards, I dropped on them and said, "Oh, by the way, this entire presentation was brought to you by ChatGPT, and it built the entire thing." So long language models we use every single day. Claude.ai has been a real go-to for us, being able to upload all of our operating procedures documents, learning the company's model, so that it provides really good information for all of the organization and all the positions that we're going to be hiring for. That is incredible. We use a lot of automations through programs like Zapier, which has been an amazing program. It has its faults, and you need somebody to make sure that the automations are working properly. But it's been really incredible, and we've been toying around with building our own GPT for our website, being able to provide information that people can come to and find whatever information they need on building, real estate development, that type of thing as well.
Talk real quick about your coaching company that you're building out, because you're helping a lot of people with trades, and building leadership and integrating these automations and systems. But you're also talking about profit a lot. You want to talk about, if someone's in the trades and they want your expertise, how they can find you, how they can learn from what you're doing.
Yeah, 100%. So when we started building operating procedures and getting really serious about this a little over a decade ago, we were about 5 years into business before we really started taking that seriously. And we've been through iterations as we grow. Our operating procedures have changed, but there's a few key things, few key SOPs that need to absolutely happen. So if you find me on Instagram, build with B Smith, or at New Vision Projects, message me trade, and I'll send you the top 10 SOPs that any company that is growing needs to have in place. Absolutely will. If you want to take that, knock that out of the park, I will send that to you. As far as contacting me anywhere, I love if you could follow and listen along on the Open Concept podcast. I'll throw that out there.
Yeah.
Appreciate the open to drop that. That's really the best place to find me. LinkedIn, I'm there as well. I spend a lot of time more and more on LinkedIn. I'm liking that platform, and I'm going as far as to say it's becoming one of my favorite platforms these days.
I'll put those links down below in the show notes for everybody to go connect with Brandon. He's a really cool guy. The discipline, the focus, the growth that he's had already in his business and the direction that he's going, you're going to see more and more of him in the future with everything. So go follow and connect with him. Brandon, thanks for being on, and thanks for tuning in to the next episode.